Well, today we're going to show you guys the EV Watchdog monitoring app. Now this is for Hyundai, Kia and MG electric vehicles and shows you a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes that you don't normally get to see. We'll also go through the compatible adapters or dongles which you'll need to communicate with your car's computer system. We'll show you how to set it all up, and we'll also show the features, benefits and the different screens while it's in use of the EV Watchdog. And remember, we're 100% independent, so we're not getting any kickbacks or payments from any suppliers talked about today. So stay with us. Welcome to Electric Car Australia, the Aussie YouTube channel for those wanting to know a little bit more about electric cars or sustainable living technologies. And if you're new to the channel, thanks very much. Please click that subscribe button. Only about 85% of our viewers are subscribers, which is a little disappointing because subscriptions are the free, easy way to support the channel. So please click that button. And to our regular subscribers and viewers, thanks very much. It's great to have you guys back with us. Now look, today we're going to show you guys an app that I've found very helpful delving into some of the behind the scenes information in our MG ZS EV. It's called EV Watchdog. I just wanted some general information about the car which isn't available in the normal MG ZS dashboard or gauges, so hence why I bought this. So that's what today's video will be about: the dongle or the adapter that you'll need for the car, and also the EV Watchdog app, and we'll go through both those separately. So let's talk first about the dongle or the adapter. Now this is the little gadget that actually communicates between the app on your phone or your desktop and your car's computer system. So there's lots of different qualities of these around and brands, etc. So we'll get into the detail shortly. But basically it looks like that. So that's the one that I've got, and we'll provide you some more details on that shortly. So they're a very small little piece of kit. There's the pins and they plug up into your car like that. Now, a couple of things to know about these. These are set up to read data from your car. So some people get a little bit concerned about the security. Somebody could hack in and take control of your car. In the media, there's been some horror stories of that sort of stuff happening. That is very, very, very unlikely, particularly with the better quality dongles or adapters, because they have good security around it. But if that is something of concern, certainly spend more time and effort on research doing that. But generally, and I'll show you shortly when we go into the apps generally read data from your car. So they're not sending data back, they're not changing any settings or do anything to your car. It's just reading the outputs of the computer systems behind your car. So for me, I'm comfortable that these are not causing any damage to the car, avoiding warranty, all that sort of stuff. But by all means, make sure that you're comfortable with that yourself. So another couple of things to mention is that they use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, so that's partly where the security comes in. If you've got a good branded one, they have some good security around that to make sure that people aren't hacking in. They do draw a little bit of 12-volt current, so again we'll talk about the quality shortly, but the better quality ones draw less power. But be aware, when they are plugged in, they are drawing power from your 12-volt battery. So if you do drive your car to the airport and park it for 2 weeks, this will be an added drain on your 12-volt battery, so a good idea to unplug them if you'll be leaving your car for a while and not using them. And I mentioned it a couple of times, but quality really does count with these. So, you know, you can get cheap Chinese ones off eBay and Amazon, all that sort of stuff. But I do recommend that you do go with a quality brand. And as I said, we'll talk about some of those shortly. So a quick overview of the EV Watchdog app before we get into it. Now, it was originally designed for Hyundai and Kia vehicles, and it has recently been, I guess, improved or further developed to include the MG range of vehicles. And I've been using it with the MG ZS EV here in Australia, and it is working really well. Daniel from Portugal is the developer, and he's continually providing updates, etc., and seems very open to suggestions, improvements, or bugs that have been identified, and he's putting regular version updates. So hats off to Daniel. So look, another thing to mention about the app at this point is there's a free and a paid version, and we'll show you the difference shortly. I bought the paid version, it was $25. Now the final thing I'll mention before we get into it, it is only a Android or Windows supported app. So if you have Apple gear, unfortunately this is not going to work. So as I mentioned, today is going to be a desktop analysis or review demonstration of this particular dongle and app. And the reason I've done that was because we're saving up for a new camera to do mobile shots because we need a couple of different cameras to do that. And by the way, if you'd like to help us out with that and throw us a few dollars, I'll include the PayPal donation link below. But as I mentioned, we will have some screenshots showing the app in use in the car and showing some of the different metrics. So let's get into it. Firstly, we'll have a look at the dongle. So as I mentioned, this is the dongle that we've bought. It's the OBD-Link LX. So you'll see it on the screen there. Now I bought this direct from the OBD-Link store. It's a US-based store. It was around 100 Australian dollars delivered. And the reason I'd done that was, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different qualities of these apps, and there's also a lot of different knockoffs. So even though you can buy this app on eBay and Amazon and Alibaba, I'm not saying they're knockoffs, but it's a lot harder to know that they're the genuine real deal. So I thought for me, I'd rather buy it direct off the US company and know that it was the real deal. And like I said, some of those cheaper ones, they're only slightly cheaper, and you've got the risk that they may be a cheap Chinese knockoff and don't actually work how they're supposed to. Totally up to you. I'll include the link to the store on the screen that I bought it at in the show notes. And what we'll do now is we'll flick over to the EV Watchdog homepage, and we'll show you some of the different dongles or adapters that work with this app. Here's a list of the adapters or dongles that are known to work with this app. Now that doesn't mean that there's other dongles that will work, but these are the ones that Daniel, the app developer, knows of. And there's the one that I've got right at the top there, the OBD-Link LX Bluetooth. So there's some little points there: expensive, fastest, has a sleep mode, auto wake up, and is upgradable. So as I said, for me, around 100 Australian dollars was good value to know that I had a really good quality dongle that works. Now what I'll do is I'll put a couple of screenshots in there of where this dongle goes into the MG ZS EV. Now if you've got a Hyundai or a Kia, or for that matter any other EV or combustion engine car, because they have these as well, they'll plug in different places, but generally it's underneath the dashboard inside the car. So in the MG, it's on the right hand driver's side, that's in Australia obviously, and it's just above your right hand knee. Straight up like that, nice and easy to get to. And the little lights on the bottom will start flashing. And again, I won't step through the exact process to connect those. The instructions come in the box. So the app comes with or this particular app comes with a great little box like that. And it's got some instructions in it, etc. It is very simple to connect to your phone. It's the same as connecting any other Bluetooth device. You turn Bluetooth on your phone. There's a little button there you press that sets it into sending a signal mode, and your phone will pick it up and it'll connect. So same as connecting any other Bluetooth device. Okay, so that was the OBD2 dongle or adapter that you need to have for the app to work, because that communicates between the app and your car. So let's now have a look at the EV Watchdog app itself. We've looked at those other bits and pieces before, but this piece is well worth having a look at. So it just talks about, it is an Android app and the versions that you need. And if you enable GPS, it will track your altitude, locations, and all that sort of stuff. I didn't have that turned on. I'm not a big fan of allowing apps and phones to track my movements, so I have my location data turned off on my phone. I did turn it on once or twice to check that this works, and it does. So if you don't mind that and you use the app a lot, you'll be able to capture that data as well. So what we'll do now is we'll just click on the little download app symbol here, and this gives us a little bit more info on the difference between the free and the purchased version. As I mentioned, I purchased it. It was around $25. I think it's great to support developers of these sorts of apps. We're used to these days getting a lot of stuff for free, but if people put the time and effort in and it's a piece of kit that you value and you think that it's handy, I think it's well worth paying them. So it's a one-off fee and you can have it on multiple devices. So we paid the money and you can download it. I've got it across 2 phones, a tablet. So there's multiple devices you can use it on. So this just gives you a quick look at the difference between the free and paid, and we won't go through these individually because I'll show you the paid mobile app shortly. And yeah, bits and pieces, you pay extra, you get no ads obviously, and you get some extra screens and calculations and all that sort of stuff. So you can data log to CSV files and manipulate it in Excel. So if you're a data nerd and you really like to capture all this data, go your hardest. As I mentioned, out of interest, I've looked at some of this stuff, but I certainly don't keep this plugged in and track every single movement. You do need to keep the app open and turned on, activated, and also have your dongle in and working if you want to track every single trip. So just keep that in mind. I generally just plug it in when we're going on longer road trips. So you'll see some of the history shortly that I'll show you. It's mainly long trips, the around town sort of stuff. I haven't been tracking. So yeah, that's the desktop that gives you a little bit more information on the free and the paid version. So what we're going to do now, we're going to jump straight in and I'll show you some screenshots of the app in action. So these are phone screenshots. Now apologies, we don't actually have this live. I mentioned in a previous video we're saving up for another camera so that we can capture this sort of detail live as it's happening, which will be a lot more exciting and better for you guys as a viewing. But I think this is quite good. It gives you an idea and a feel for what the screens look like and the type of information they can show. What it doesn't show is that you can flick between different outputs. So you can have amp hours, kilowatt hours, horsepower, amps, all that sort of stuff. But I will try and show you a couple of different screenshots that show that. So looking at this first one here, this is actually a screenshot of us charging at home on the granny charger, so only very slow charging. So have a look at the top part of the screen and you'll see there's a lot of zeros there and not much information. So when I show you a screen later on, that'll all make sense. But at the moment, that's telling you there that there's 73 kilometres of range left in the battery. And if you go down towards the centre, that shows you there's 33%, so the battery cell in the centre of the screen there. And on the right-hand side, 13.3 volts, that's the voltage of the auxiliary 12-volt battery. So as I mentioned before, when you're plugged in charging, the car actually charges that 12-volt battery. So you can leave the dongle plugged in and the app going and monitoring all this stuff. So down towards the bottom there, you'll see the battery cell icon with the -5 amps. So what that's saying is that we're putting 5 amps of charge into the battery. We'll flick over to the next one there and look, that's the identical screenshot, but what I've done there is I've just touched the little battery cell indicator on the right there and it changes from amps to kilowatt hours. So that just shows you there that we're putting in 2.1 kilowatt hours with the granny charger. The next screen there is like a charge curve. So that's showing you that over time the charge ramps up and it will flatten out. So that makes more sense once you've got a longer history, but unfortunately that's the only screenshot I've got of that one. So again, that's home charging. And there's about 15 or 20 different selections on these charts you can have. So on the right-hand side there, you'll see that there's that little arrow. So in the live version, you can click on that and you can select multiple other different parameters there if you like. So this one's showing the temperatures, so the minimum, maximum temperature while we're charging. So you'll see that on the screen there, and also the fan, and I'll talk a little bit later about the fan, but basically that's the cooling fan. So when things get a little bit hot under the collar, the fan kicks in and starts to the coolant starts to pump around and the fan kicks in on the radiator and starts to cool things down. So the next one there is showing the battery cell temperature and also the electric motor temperature. So the minimum cell temperature is 24, the maximum is 26. Again, this is at the home charger, so we'll show you one doing a fast charge on a 50 kilowatt charger and we'll show you the difference. But this is the home charger. So 24 minimum, 26 maximum, that's battery cell temperature. And the little motor in the center there, that's 25, that's the electric motor temperature. So you'll see again later on that that can be different to the battery cells. The cell voltages underneath 3.66 and 3.709, that's showing the variance between the different cell voltages. Here's one that we prepared earlier with a little longer time frame. So this is one when we were traveling. So we done, and just looking there, about 160 kilometers. So that shows the kilowatt hour consumption per kilometer and also the speed. So as I said, those parameters, you can change those to whatever you like, and there's a huge amount in there. So this is the first screen that sort of shows things while you're in motion. So a little bit more information on here. So the charge one, so that's showing the current state of charge of the battery. So we've got 5.7 kilowatt hours of energy left, which is 12.7% of battery capacity. So it's starting to get down. The one on the right, the capacity, what that's saying is if we were fully charged, the current health of the battery, it would take 107.1 amp hours or hold 1.7 amp hours of energy, and that's 99.7% of its capacity. So what that's saying is we've got a slight little bit of battery degradation there. So at full charge, that's what we'd have. Left-hand side showing what we've currently got. So underneath that, regen. So on this particular trip, we've regen 6.2 amp hours of energy back into the battery, and we've consumed 93.8 amp hours on the total trip. Now keep in mind, depending on how long you stop the car and charge and all that sort of stuff, the app will actually accumulate and keep all this information together, I guess. So it can be a mixture of driving, parked, having a coffee, charging, all that sort of stuff, so it wraps it up. So at this particular point in time, the car had put a maximum of 50.7 kilowatt hours back into the battery. Now that would have been from regenning, so coming down a large hill, pull your foot right off, it'll put in 50 kilowatts. So that's the maximum energy that's gone back into the battery. The maximum energy that's come out of the battery was 73.8 kilowatts. So that's when I've accelerated to overtake or something, and it draws that huge amount of energy out of the battery. So you've got the minimum and the maximum coming out of the battery. Underneath there, you'll see that's the battery pack voltage. So in general terms, the MGs have about a 400 volt battery pack, up to 450 volt when it's fully charged. So it's showing at this point, it's 386. And given if we look back up the top that we've only got 12% of charge left in the battery, that makes sense that that voltage comes down. And over the other side, the fan there, 100%. So what that means is that the fan is actually working at 100% capacity to move all that coolant around and keep all the electronics cool. So we flick over to this one, and what this shows is we're actually on charge here. So the same screen, if we look at the charge column in the left, you'll notice that this has gone green. So I'll flick it back to the previous one. White, green. So that means we're charging. So the battery capacity now is up to 28.3 kilowatt hours, and it's at 63.5%. And again, right hand side, it's the same. If it was 100% capacity, it would be 107 amp hours. Regen is 0.6 kilowatts, so that's basically because we haven't been driving, it's been charging, so I'm not really sure where that 0.6 comes from. It might be just a hangover of the previous one. We haven't consumed anything because we're sitting there charging. it's showing the maximum kilowatts going in is 41.2 kilowatts. So this is on a 50 kilowatt tritium charger. And if you'd like to have a look at fast charging while you're on a road trip, we'll include a link to that up above, and that'll show charging at one of these 50 kilowatt hour chargers and what it looks like. And these are some of the stats that you'd see. So we're actually getting 41.2 kilowatts. Voltage has obviously gone up, 427 there because we're charging, and the voltage of the pack is increasing. And again, the fans are going. So the fans do cut in and out when you're charging, because obviously if you're putting a lot of energy into the battery quite quickly, the batteries do warm up. So let's take a look at that now. So the battery cell temperature was down to 14, so that would have been overnight, and then it's been up to 33, so it's warmed up quite a lot. And it shows there that the motor temperature is 53. Now, these screenshots aren't necessarily all in order, so they're just various screenshots I've took at different times based on when I've looked at the app and I thought, oh, that's interesting, or that shows something cool. I've took a screenshot. Again, it shows the individual cell unit voltages underneath there, and it shows the average, the target, and the max difference there. So you pop along, this is one that's showing a screenshot of when you're actually driving. So the driving time and the little hand signal up on the left-hand side, that's showing that the vehicle was stopped for 5% of the total time that the app was turned on at this point. And the other one with the little aeroplane, that's gliding. So we were basically gliding for 1% of the time, or 18 kilometres. So that means you're not regenning, you're not accelerating, you're just smoothly rolling along. Underneath that, it shows 19.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. Now, most of you will know exactly what that is. The lower that number, the better, the more efficient the driving. The one under that is showing 9.19. And that's the time I think we've been going. The next one is just an economy type scale. So that's out of 5. So 5 being the most economical driving. 3.6, that's sort of saying that it's not too bad. So yeah, the higher that number, up to 5, the better, the more economical you drive. The next one's just your speed, so maximum and the average. So the maximum speed was 110 or 111 on the motorway. Average speed's 85. And as I mentioned, I don't have didn't have the location one on, so therefore the climb descent didn't record. But if you had that on, you could show your altitudes, etc. So you're climbing up the Blue Mountains and coming down the other side, it'll pick that up and show it. So the next one's one of the screens that shows a lot of useful information when you're actually driving. So the kilometres per hour, so we're travelling at 93 kilometres an hour there. It's telling us we've got 52 kilometres of range left. We've travelled 149 kilometres, and it's taken us 1 hour and 44 minutes to do that. The P, I'm not sure what that one is. I think that's meant to be the gear selector. However, it's in P all the time, so that doesn't change. The one in the middle is the battery cell capacity or percentage. So there's 21% of charge left in the battery, and the little blue arrow going into the battery means we're actually regenning. So if you look down at the blue bar beside the battery cell, that's showing that we're putting 100 amps back into the battery. So again, I took that screenshot because I was coming down a really steep hill. It was full regen, and that just goes to show how much energy you can pump back into the battery, which is one of the huge advantages of an electric car. If that was a diesel or petrol car, that's totally going to waste that energy. It's up in smoke. So 100 amps going back into the battery, and the energy via the motor going back was 23 Newton meters. So I think that's torque, the torque going back in. Again, you can see horsepower. So if you touch on those when it's live, you can swap all those around, change them to kilowatts, horsepower, all sorts of stuff. So if you just go back up slightly, you'll see the electric motor there is doing 6,000 RPM. And the other one, of course, is our 12-volt battery again. It's sitting at 14.2 volts. So flick over, this is the last slide I've just got to show you guys. So this is not regenning, so this is when we're actually accelerating. So the info at the top's the same, 94 kilometres, 176 kilometres range, blah, 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 blah. The cell in the middle is 71%, so we've got higher charge. The green arrow is pointing to the right, so that means that energy is coming out of the battery. Again, the electric motor is around 6,100 RPM. And you'll see that we're consuming out of the battery 54 amps instead of putting it back in under regen. 30 Newton meters of torque is coming out of the electric motor, and that's 13 horsepower at the wheels. So rather than at the electric motor, the app calculates what's coming out at the wheels. So again, it's really interesting to change all those around. So look, that's it guys. I hope you found that useful. It's been a little bit disjointed. Like I said, it would have been nice to have that second camera and we could be in the car and we could be doing it live and flicking between screens and showing you guys. We'll get there one day, but at the moment I just thought that that was the best we could do to show you guys around the app. I think the most valuable part is the screenshots of the actual app from the phone and using it. That's it, stay safe and look forward to catching up soon. Cheers.